Well, speaking of program that has not been fantastic, that is UCLA. They just fired DeShaun Foster, who lasted about all but 3 weeks in his college season with new transfer quarterback Nico Emiliava. Got to know what Nico's dad is thinking at this point, going from Tennessee packed out every week to UCLA, who, if you've seen the pictures, it looks like, I mean, it looks like a shell of itself. I mean, it doesn't even look like the Rose Bowl Stadium. I don't say I want to feel bad for Nico. I just feel bad for the whole entire UCLA program in general because I feel like by now with NIL and certain resources that they should be on the same level playing field as USC. And USC has kept that distance from them and they don't look great. I mean, UCLA looks worse than Cal this year. And we'll speak about Cal later on, but I mean, they're one of the worst teams in all of the state of California.
So, thinking about, we can have a bigger conversation about UCLA because they're just not relevant and they weren't going to be relevant. Chip Kelly took the job, then he went to the NFL. He's with the Raiders now. To me, they never had a chance to be good, even with Chip Kelly calling the plays and being the head coach there and maybe doing the recruiting. They didn't have a chance, I didn't think. What I think is more interesting is that you would fire a coach 3 weeks in, and maybe we can talk about this with Brent Pry as well with Virginia Tech. But what is that? Why do you fire a coach? Let me ask you that. Why do you fire a coach 3 weeks in? You go through fall camp, you go through spring ball, you go through fall camp. And by the way, this DeShaun Foster being the head coach was kind of put in a weird spot anyway. So I'm not sure why we would even. So, like, what is your take on firing coach this early in the season? Because I have mine, but I just want to hear what you think first.
I think if you wanted me to dumb it down to just one word, it would be boosters. I think there's too much pressure from people with too much money, and there's no patience at all. We talk about there's no development of players. There's really no development of coaching. People expect you to take on a name brand like UCLA and bring it back to prominence, and that's just not possible in 1 year. I don't care if they had a $50 million budget this year. They weren't going to be able to put something together in one season that granted Deshaun Foster an extension or from him being fired. Like it was pretty much the same thing. You did the first college football trade, and now
Mhm.
you're overpaying for a kid who was overpaid at his last school.
True.
Now he's being disappointed. So it's not even the fact that like he's been great and everybody else around him has been in terrible. He's been bad as well. Like he's played himself out of a lot of NFL money, a lot of draft boards. There's a lot of teams that probably won't even take him now because of the actions that he's followed and with his dad. But to go back to why you would fire a coach 3 games in, I think it's strictly because the people with the money hold a lot more power than us fans are giving credit.
Mhm.
And these coaches have to essentially bow down to that because these are the same people that are going to pay these coaches. And if these coaches are getting extensions for 2, 3, 4 seasons, that's where the money's coming from. And why waste these recruits? If I mean, here's my thing: UCLA is 0-3.
Mhm.
UCLA gets to 1-7 with Deshaun Foster. The 7 kids that just decommitted 12 hours after Deshaun Foster got fired, those kids are not going to UCLA.
That's
And
fair.
now, you've got the 30-day window under 4 games. These guys are allowed to transfer and basically just sit out the rest of the season and then be ready in the winter, springtime at their next program. I mean, there's a lot of kids that are willing to take that chance. And you got 4 and 5 stars decommitting. I think the saddest part about it is that UCLA's got a bunch of trench guys decommitting, and that's where it starts with UCLA is on the offensive defensive line. And if your best prospects are gone, you have an uphill battle for at least 2 or 3 years with whatever coach you find. I mean, you could bring in Kirby Smart to UCLA, and it's going to take him a year or two to rebuild that whole pipeline of recruiting, the trust, just the whole program in general. And where does UCLA go after this? I don't know, but to just keep going downwards because they're not going to be able to compete. The kids aren't going to be there. And the trust from the alumni, they're not about to just fork over a bunch of $1 million for a QB that we already gave away. Now he's, going crazy at Tennessee. We brought in a kid who is the highest paid NIL athlete of all time, damn near, and he stinks. We don't even want him around next year. Like we just paid this kid however much money for a 2 year contract. We probably cut it after this season and go look for somebody else. and maybe just get somebody younger who we can build around. And that might just be it. And it's, if you're going to build around the player, the coach is going to be fired. If you're going to give these coaches these extensions, then you're talking about roster turnover that is too much for some of these coaches to keep up with. There's only so much recruiting that a single coach can do. You got to really have strong offensive and decent defensive coordinators to keep up if your coach is not one of these elite recruiting guys. And there's only so many of those guys.
So I think this is a maybe the first two examples that of we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, and it's come full circle way faster than we thought of the GM versus head coach and who has the power with the boosters. So
Hmm.
I'm looking at UCLA's GM. His name again, not get it wrong. It's Butler Benton. So he was previously with Notre Dame, Arkansas, and he had Michigan State as well. He had Georgia Southern, I believe,
What were
staff
his
there as well.
job? What was his
He
title
was
there?
working in personnel. He wasn't the GM, but he was working in personnel, which a lot of these guys do, recruiting, making sure guys are paid with NIL. Like the job has evolved to where like you kind of have an HR for this, for the team. That's kind of what
Mm.
the GM serves for. It feels like, and we'll talk about Brent Pry here because the situation is even a little more different with him. It feels like the GM said this isn't going to work out. My issue with that though is whatever DeShaun Foster was building is gone now. So
Yeah,
you fire him early, and to me, it's if he was nobody expected UCLA to be really good. However, we kind
right.
of look at them with Michigan, which is like we're not going to be great this year, but your recruiting class, you 4 or 5 stars, you guys could come in perfect spot. We have a quarterback who we think is okay now, but could be really good next year. Give him a couple weapons, and we could be something in the Big Ten. Like we could do something here. It feels like we were building that to we're going to restart. And so my question is with an early firing like UCLA, which is in Los Angeles, like it's a fantastic spot and there are plenty of
Mm.
recruits that brand can get and there's plenty of money that they can spend. My question is I wonder if Butler Benton, if he felt like the GM of UCLA, felt like we could get somebody better and potentially plug and play them. Problem is, if you're a head coach, why in the world would you want to go there? They just fired a guy after one season and 3 games. Like,
And that's, and I think that is what, and I think the short term vision on that is what's getting lost is because, yeah, you might be able to fire this guy and then overpay. Let's say you're okay with overpaying for the next guy. Well, what is that guy that you're overpaying? What are his expectations? And then what do you now have to include in these contracts for this guy to stay? So, like I said a couple weeks ago, these 4 5 year guarantees, this is what I was talking about. You're not going to be able to fire me 3 games into the season. And this is my second year with the program. Or if it's my third year with the program, you're not going to be able to just get rid of me because you're hearing all this noise from these boosters. And then you might think, oh, well, we can get the USF coach because we know that he'll take, however much money a season, or we can get this guy, we can pluck this guy. And I think that the egos are involved and people aren't thinking, well, when this coach actually gets here and fall camp starts and he sees what he has to work with, it doesn't matter how much money you're getting paid, what the product that you're going to be putting on the field is not remotely close to the expectations that you set upon yourself.
well, let me. So, conspiracy land, I'll step into that for just a second. What if Deshaun Foster was doing everything right, and then by the way, he's the one who recruited Joey Aguilar and said, we're going to sign him out of Appalachian State, and we
Hmm.
see what he's doing. So, he's like, okay, I'm going to get this kid from App State. I think he's pretty
But he
good.
did, but he was, and I read this too, that and Joey Aguilar and the other UCLA quarterbacks were aware that Deshaun Foster was recruiting Nico Miliava under the table.
That's exactly where I'm going with this. And so Joey Aguilar, he gets him as a commit, and they're going to pay him a little bit of money to come there, or whatever. And then what if the GM for UCLA was like, we're good on NIL budget. We've got enough to spend for these recruits. And Deshaun Foster said, well, I want an additional 2, 3 million, however much money they paid Nico to get Nico. And the GM's like, well, I don't love the idea, but if he works out, he works out. And so now it's the coach pulls some strings, gets some money for a quarterback that he thinks is going to work out. And which I kind of debate if how much of a sweepstakes Nico was because he took a while to commit. You would think a guy who would get kicked off of Tennessee's team, essentially what happened, would sign much faster. He was shopping around at Tulane and different schools. But
Right.
anyway, He pulls the strings for Nico and it doesn't work out. That to me feels like the kind of move that would get you fired. That is, in my opinion, why they let him go so soon because nothing else makes
That's a good
sense.
point.
Recruiting was very, very good. We knew the team wasn't going to be great, but you have the NIL budget, you have guys coming in. Like you said, you're building in the trenches, which is exactly what you need to be doing. And it felt like DeShaun Foster was the kind of guy that could relate to recruits, especially in different parts of the country. So for him to get fired so fast, it feels like he took a swing and he missed, and that's why they let him go so soon with this.
I mean, you're talking about a $3-4 million mistake. People all around the world get fired for $3-4 million mistakes. So, I mean, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar program in a multi-billion-dollar industry. These numbers are only keeping going up. And I saw a report like the operational expenses that a lot of these teams have every single year. I think Alabama's was in like the 70 millions. And it's just like, we got to keep up. That's why DeBoer is under so much heat right now. It's not that Alabama is trash. It's look how much money we've been spending to make sure Alabama is great. And we're not getting the output. And UCLA has to draw a line in the sand. How much longer are we going to be the worst team in LA? How much longer? I'm 28 years old and they've never been better than USC. Never.
Never, not once. I want to transition to Virginia Tech just for a second because the situation feels a little similar but a little different. Where Brent Pride gets fired out. Obviously, they start 0-3 and they had a chance to beat South Carolina and they didn't. Football is such a game of like inches, truly, where you could be 1-3 or you could be 2-1 off of just a couple plays. Now, Virginia Tech brings in a GM, Bruce Smith, who played there. They brought Bruce Smith in June 7th, 2025, this year. So like 2 months before kickoff, they brought this guy in. And now you wonder, okay, so Brent probably gets off to a bad start. They're 0-3. Is the GM looking at this? And this is a conversation we're going to keep having. Is the GM looking at it like, this isn't my guy. I think he stinks and he can't recruit. Or is it just, I'm the GM now. I get to do what I want, and I never wanted to work with this guy, and I'm going to get him out, and this is my excuse to get him out of here. How does that work?
I think you're right. And I think when we talk about a GM having that much power, because here, and they set the tone with this. You hired that guy in June.
Right.
That's all the power that guy needs on paper to be like, hey, this is my program that I'm running. And I think a lot of these guys' egos get in the way of like, hey, buddy, you're still at Virginia Tech. Like, I don't know what coach you think you're about to bring in. I don't know what money you think you're about to raise for another coach and then the extension that he wants. At Virginia Tech, you can't make a coach like that the scapegoat of your situation because it's not going to get any better with just anybody at head coach because you're going to have an interim guy. And then let's just say, so how long does the interim position last? Because you're talking about having an interim coach for 11 more weeks. Well, are you spending those 11 weeks back channel communicating with coaches? Like, what are you doing from the time that you fire a coach? And this goes for UCLA too. Yeah. Who are you in communications with that made you think, okay, the grass can be greener on the other side if we just meet with this guy, or we throw this guy an offer that he can't refuse? Yeah, you're bringing in these coaches from these small programs, and you just hope that they bring kind of that same magic and same energy into your program. It's not that easy. And so for a GM to basically showcase the power that he has, what does that say to the next coach at Virginia Tech?
100%. And we're going to have to keep having this conversation of who holds the power in
every week
in these schools. What's so funny is this is why I don't like the firing. Even if you know he's a dead man walking, I still want him there because the portal can rip all my players away. If any player on UCLA or Virginia Tech has any good film, he's in the portal, ready to go.
And they have this window, like we just talked about.
Free window.
Guys can basically get film and get a free redshirt year because of these decisions.
I saw a kid on Clemson put together or post his highlights on social media or something. It's just like, he's probably looking to transfer. And you get that warning, but they didn't fire their coach. So you look at Virginia Tech, they let go of their coach. Now, here's my question. Who, at the interim coach, same with UCLA, who's recruiting? What recruits are you getting at UCLA or Virginia Tech? Truly, who are you getting? And then you have NIL. All right, well, who's doing the payments? And what players am I going to pay? And who is making the payments that I can trust is going to have the best interest of me in I guess, in their head or the way that they're thinking about it? For example, I want to go pay a quarterback. I'll go pay the best FCS quarterback to come to my school. Who's the coach? Who's coaching him? Who's the offensive coordinator? What's the scheme? Like you don't have that answer. And then you have the truly the portal where you're not going to get guys. Now you're going to be like letting guys leave. So you have like
Mhm.
an emptying nest of players that are gone. You can't pay anybody because boosters don't know who the head coach is because they want to pick him just like the GM does. And then you can't recruit anybody because again, what's the philosophy going to be for my school? You look up at Virginia Tech. For us growing up, I'm 30, you're 20, you're about to be 28 or 29. They have always been wing T like triple option. And so now they're running the spread. You're looking up like that's a complete shift in identity. Well, that's a different coach. That's a different scheme. So what does Virginia Tech look like? What does UCLA look like? You don't have those answers at all. So you can't spend money. You can't recruit guys, and you can't keep anybody. What are you doing firing a coach this early in the season? It to me, you really handicap what you're going to be for the next 5 years, in my opinion.
And that's the thing. These little short gains that you think you're making to either impress these recruits or impress these boosters. These
Mm-mm.
championships only last one season. So I mean, any of these coaches would trade, whatever to be in a spot that Dabo Swinney used to be in. That guy's won two national championships and like hasn't been relevant in a long time, but he can't get fired.
Right.
And it's not a what have you done for me lately type of thing. It makes me almost think of the future of NIL like, okay, where is this thing going? Is there about to be like Saudi Arabia money in college football? Are
Sure.
there about to be a bunch of like billionaires that are just forking over money? Like the Cody Campbell guy, he was like a very average Texas Tech football player, won the NFL for 2 years, and now has a huge business that's scaled up to billions of dollars. Do these universities, are they just going to rely on guys like this to say, hey, we'll put your name wherever you want on the university, or we'll, make sure we're sponsoring whatever company you run if you give us $5 to $10 million. And yes, there are some rich guys, rich alumni that care about the program enough to give that money, but like any other smart millionaire, I'm not giving my money to a losing entity that can't even compete in a conference that is not premier. And you're in a location like Virginia where you kind of boxed into just the Tidewater pipeline. There's really not much wiggle room you have.
And there in that area, there's a lot of defense money and government money that you could potentially, get access to. The thing about college football that's different than the NFL or any other professional sport is when you give money, you get ownership, which means you get access to like the basically the brand growing. You get a real return on your capital. If I buy part of the Jets, I know you love the Jets and that brand grows a little bit, so does my net worth. When I give NIL money, I am literally lighting that money on fire, hoping the coaches and the GMs know
Right.
exactly what they're doing. And so I don't know if Saudi would ever get involved in college football because there's no return there. But like the real thing is I'll take you for an example. When's the last time you bought a New York Jets jersey?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Because they haven't been good.
Right.
So when it comes to college football, yes, I might give a million or 2 million here and there, sure, but if my team keeps slipping or we're not very good, I'm not going to keep giving money. What I think may happen, and these GMs get put in a really tough spot, so we're going to figure out who's at the top of the food chain. It could be these boosters. Is you start saying things like, "I'm not giving my $1 million, $2 million unless he's fired. I'm not giving 5 million, or I've got 10 million, but I'm not giving it to that head coach. I want somebody different. He has to be
And
gone
I
today."
and I
And I,
think that's exactly what's happening.
I think that the leverage is not with the guys that draw the X's and O's, and it's not the personnel people, the general managers who are able to do these things. You talked about what do you expect being at Virginia Tech? What the hell were they expecting with Bill Belichick at North Carolina? This game is about who has 4 and 5 stars and who can really put the best athletes on the field, not who has the best X's and O's. That's at the very top, and none of these schools we've talked about, UCLA, Virginia Tech, or UNC, have anywhere near top talent to be able to compete. And so spending 10 million on a school like that doesn't get you much because you're not going to be able to recruit.
Right.
And you definitely don't want to risk a Florida State situation, or an even better version of that would have been Ole Miss last year where you spend 20 million on your roster, maybe a little more, and you end up with 3 losses and a team that's just like I'm not giving that same money again. So I don't
Right.
know if you're a booster and you're like, oh my God, I just wish our team was better. Well, give me another 5 million. I'll make something happen. Like, buddy, no, you're stealing my money. You're not getting anything for it. I'm not doing that. So
Right.
it is
Exactly.
incredibly short sighted, and I don't know how you, because the money's involved. I don't know how you combat that as a football coach or as a GM. You have a bad streak and you get fired. Like the only thing I can do is do like Billy Napier has, have a crazy buyout. And that's the only way I can keep my job from being taken from me in the middle of a
Hmm.
season after 3 games. Like I could still go 9-3 and we wouldn't even be talking about this. But I'm
Like
fired, so yeah, I'm gone.
every time we talk about NIL and coaching and it just the main theme of no development. It seems to pop up every single time, and that's
Mm.
kind of what I keep going back to is there's no development between the coaches, the players, the program. Everybody is just so short-sighted now, and I get it when you're spending all this money every single year. This is what you want. You want results. You want direct results from a bunch of money, and you think that kids can just be bought. Well, the talent can't be purchased either. So there's one thing, something's going to have to give. And
Mhm.
for Virginia Tech and UCLA sitting where they are right now, they made a big splash move, but I don't think anybody else should follow that because you're going to see the ripple effects of these programs in the next couple of years.
You watched Florida not make that move with Billy Napier last year, and to be fair, it has not paid off for them yet. It has not. However, you watched them not fire their coach, and they rallied. So you firing your coach, I don't know. Now, I want to spend just a quick moment on development for just a second because I think there's a guy who doesn't get enough credit for being the developer that he is, and that is he's in the NFL now, but Jim Harbaugh, and just how good of a real developer he is. It's an off-topic thing, but you look at what he was doing with Michigan and specifically JJ McCarthy and just how he was able to instill an incredible defense, instill a fantastic run game, and then put quarterback play on the field that just had to be serviceable enough to get the ball to the different players on passing downs or
Mm.
on shot plays and things like that. You go to the NFL, and then now all of a sudden Justin Herbert is really playing well. Quentin Johnston is all of a sudden can catch footballs now. Like that team looks like a fantastic organization. Go back to when he was before he was in college. He was with the 49ers and took Colin Kaepernick to the Super Bowl. Like I believe he's a rookie as the backup. So or his second year as the backup. So with Alex Smith, who's winning games with. And so you look at a guy like that and you go, he develops players. That guy develops players. And you wonder how many of them are there in the league. Brian Hartline at Ohio State. Ryan Day, to be fair, to give him credit, that guy develops
Yeah,
players. James Franklin at Penn State. On the defensive side, he develops players. So
he has that track record.
there
Yep.
are these schools and these coaches that have that, like you said, track record of doing this, but there aren't many of them. And so for everybody else, we have to pay them so that these players come to our school. And that recipe, we have to go back to true ball knowing, true X's and O's, true, this is how you line, this is your stance, this is how you adjust when these things happen so that I have really good players and I can grow them and I can pay them less money, but I can get more out of them than going to the portal and trying to get the
And,
next
and
best player.
and here's my last example on this, and I think you make a great point. We're seeing it in the NFL right now. Harbaugh decides, I don't care what you guys are talking about. I don't care who Justin Herbert needs. We're taking Joe Alt.
Mm,
We take Joe Alt, and now look, Quentin Johnston's catching the ball all of a sudden. And it's like the ball's
unbelievable.
coming out cleaner. Justin Herbert looks like an all pro. And then you look on the flip side, you see the Bengals who made the Super Bowl in Joe Burrow's second year. They take Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell, and it's like, okay, we made the right decision. We took our receiver. Jamar Chase, I think, is the best receiver in the NFL. That's great. They made it to the Super Bowl his rookie year. Awesome. Joe Burrow is now more injured than Andrew Luck has been and is now about to be out for 3 months because of turf toe. And it's like, well, maybe if the organization had decided to take an offensive lineman and not pay these defensive players all this money and extend guys and this and that and try to make everybody happy. Now, look, the Chargers and the Bengals have completely flipped their plots on their season. And it's all because their head coach drew a hard line in the sand and said, this is the way that I know how to coach football teams, and this is what we're going to do, and I know how to develop the guys that I want.
Mm.
And look what we're looking at right now in the NFL. And so I think that's a great point that you bring up that, Harbaugh, these guys that really know what they're doing, and it could be a bigger point to where like these college teams are going to offer these NFL coaches money that they can't resist because they know that these NFL guys know what it takes and they know what it looks like on Saturdays.